You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better. Put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fourth part of What If Deku and Hero Academia Joins Power Rangers. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of CT 7567 rules on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Unknown bar. To say that Shigaraki was annoyed beyond a shadow of a doubt was an understatement. He was pissed. First, his plan to kill All Might failed and the Nomu his MSTR had given him for the task was destroyed by some piece of junk that should have scrapped years ago, and now an actual demon, some unknown creature and knight had teleported into their hideout and actually managed to convince his MSTR to appear in front of them. MSTR, please, let me kill ugly one with the horns. Shigaraki requested, ready to grab one and disintegrate. I'll cut you down before you can even get close. Darkonda growled with his sword in hand. Please, there is no need for such hostilities. All for One spoke, holding his hand up and forced his student to stand down, while Kurogiri just stood and watched, as did Korag. Prince Olympus. He began, then bowed before the prince as a sign of respect. If I may ask, were you the one who caused the Nomu to go on a rampage? Yes, but my intentions were not to turn it into a rabid animal. My intentions were to simply infuse the creature with more power so it could kill the symbol of peace and the Rangers. Olympus lied. He actually used the dagger to drain the Nomu of its quirks and send it into a rampage, so he could gain more quirks. Oh, and you saw the end results, they were complete SHT. You ended up having the Nomu go feral like it was some old comic book character with metal bones. Shigaraki said sarcastically. Nonetheless, I shall tell you, my offer. Olympus said, ignoring Shigaraki's rant. I propose an alliance with my forces and the League of Villains. When I was resurrected, I absorbed the life energy of the fools who released me, and I've learned that 80% of the world's population has a quirk. Yes, and these quirks are quite remarkable. All for One said in agreement. I was present at the USJ when the League attacked. My target was the Power Rangers, but some of those villains attacked me and I was forced to defend myself. Regrettably I was forced to cut down some of them in self-defense, absorbing their quirks along the quirks of those I didn't slay before that traitor Diabolico interfered and stopped me from killing the Rangers. Olympus admitted. So, you come here to offer an alliance and flat out admit that you killed some of my friends and stole their quirks. Shigaraki growled. MSTR, let me kill him where he stands. Ha 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 ha. Olympus laughed. Go ahead and try, but then that would deprive you of a useful tool. My star power has stored the quirks I've collected, and I can easily transfer them to anyone I choose. I can transfer the quirk to a monster and boost their strength 10 times their normal level. You can transfer the quirks you have to others. The doctor said from the other side of the TV in surprise. MSTR, it sounds similar to your power. Perhaps we might be able to infuse future creations with more stronger quirks, maybe even some of Olympus's monsters. We haven't even heard his offer. Shigaraki scoffed. There is no need to hear the offer. All for One said and walked up to Olympus. Your offer is to create an alliance between us and your forces. Our combined strength will be enough to not only kill All Might, but also the Rangers and their allies. I believe an alliance would certainly be beneficial for us both. Then I will send my faithful servant, Jinxer, to your doctor's location. He has the life force of several extremely powerful warriors that will be more than a match for the Rangers. Olympus said, holding out his hand for All for One to take, which he did and sealed the deal. I will be in contact with you on a plan of mine to keep the Rangers busy while we prepare for the impending conflict. He added, then vanished in a form of spectral energy back to the skull cavern. I don't like him. Shigaraki said bluntly to his MSTR. That Olympus guy really makes me angry. I think he was after the quirks those extras I hired had. Do not think me as so foolish to trust the word of a demon, Shigaraki. All for one assured. Doctor, assist this jinxer in resurrecting these warriors the prince mentioned and see if there are any Nasada facilities worth mentioning. Why Nasada? The doctor asked. I believe his forces will need some additional firepower. All for one answered, then vanished in a black portal. Skull Cavern. When they returned to the Skull Cavern, Olympus found Golder and Elgar waiting for him in the throne room. MSTR, why did you form an alliance with those worthless humans? We're more powerful than those humans and could easily destroy those weaklings. Golder protested. Even weaklings have their uses. Olympus answered. They do. Elgar asked with a rub of his head. Those Nomu they have created will make exceptional monsters once we place them under our control. We are simply using them to our advantage, and the moment their usefulness is over, we'll eliminate them when the time is right. Olympus explained. Oh, a brilliant plan, my prince. Jinxer said in agreement the moment the monster maker entered the throne room. Those foolish humans will only be assisting us instead of their own endeavors. I would advise caution. Korag voiced. Even a wounded animal can be dangerous. Shigaraki's quirk is dangerous, and he is little more than a man-child. His power could easily destroy the world. He's an emotional time bomb that could go off at any moment. You're just saying that because you don't approve of his methods. Darkonda sniggered, only to find Korag's blade at his throat. I will go along with the prince's plan, but I will fight my battles with honor. Korag shouted. I will take my leave and go train. Do not disturb me. He said and then vanished from the throne room. Hey! Was the night guy here just a second ago? I wanted to spar with him. Actually, I wanted to have him help me get rid of a KNK in my neck bones. Rito said as he walked in. So, what are you all talking about? Never mind Korag. Olympus shouted. Gather the others and bring them here at once. I have good news for us. UA High School Infirmary. Of the 100 villains that attacked UA, 82 of them were arrested. 36 of them had their quirks stolen while 18 of them were killed. The rest of the students of both classes 1A and 1B received only minor injuries, while Aizawa, Vlad and 13 were badly injured, but were guaranteed a full recovery. The only students who had scrapes and bruises were the Rangers and their fellow students who fought against Golder, Elgar, Ecliptor and Olympus, but thanks to Recovery Girl, UA's resident nurse, their injuries were healed, at the cost of losing a bit of their stamina. Izuku, who was still unconscious from when the Nomu flung him into the rock, got the worst of it, but he too would make a full recovery. As Connor, who had bandages wrapped around his bruised torso, looked at his injured friend, he clenched his fists in anger at how he was unable to protect Izuku from that monster. This wasn't your fault, young man. All Might said as he placed a hand on Connor's shoulder. No one could have known this league of villains would be able to get into UA or even attack students, not even the appearance of those monsters or Olympus was taken into account. I know that, All Might. Believe me, I know. Connor said, taking a deep breath, and unclenched his fist. But those villains almost killed us, and Izuku tried to save my life, without even using his quirk. Seeing him like this, all injured like he survived the longest day in World War II, I only wish I could have done something more. You don't need to do anything. Izuku murmured as he came to, much to the surprise of Connor and All Might. Izuku! Connor exclaimed. I was worried about you. Don't worry, I'm. He winced as he felt a sharp pain in his body. Alright, though I feel like I got hit by a freight train. He finished, only then noticing All Might wasn't in his muscle form and standing beside Connor. Wait. Where's Izuku? I already know about All Might's condition and that he passed his quirk on to you. Connor said. I kind of overheard him and Recovery Girl talking about it after our first day of combat training, so they let me in on the secret. Oh, I see. Izuku murmured. Look. I don't care how you got a quirk, but I'm still grateful that you have a quirk. Now, you can be the hero you always wanted to be, and I'll be right there by your side helping MSTR your new power. You've come this far, and you've got a lot of work to do, but that doesn't mean you have to do it alone. Connor said. After all, asking for help isn't something to be ashamed of. I wasn't ashamed of asking for help. Izuku muttered, just as the door to the infirmary was opened and entering the room was a tall man of 36 with short black hair and black eyes wearing a tan overcoat and matching hat, which covered their black suit, green tie, matching slacks and dress shoes. I hope I'm not interrupting anything, All Might. The man said as he removed his hat. What the hell? I didn't know that you were investigating. All Might exclaimed, spitting out a bit of BLD. Whoa, All Might. It's okay he's seeing you like this. Izuku exclaimed in equal surprise. Oh, yeah, it's fine. This guy's all right. All Might assured Izuku and Connor before introducing the man. He's Naomasa Tsukachi, my best friend on the police force. He's legit. I trust him. That's quite the introduction. Tsukachi chuckled. First, I'd like to say it's an honor to meet the Red Ranger. I've read up on the Power Rangers when I was a kid and to actually meet one in person is an honor. He said, holding his hand out to Connor, who hesitated for a moment. Is something wrong? You're packing. Connor noted, much to the surprise of Izuku who believed the man in question was actually a monster. You're carrying a Nambu M60.38 caliber double-action revolver, the standard issue for most officers in Japan while others use the more modernized version of the SIG P226. You were able to notice that right away. I'm impressed. Tsukachi said. True, I could use a more reliable sidearm, but the paperwork to get it is becoming a bit of a pain to fill out. He then turned to All Might. Sorry to cut to the chase, but we could really use any information you might have. Wait. Are the students okay? And what about Eraserhead, Vlad and 13? Toshi asked. Not counting these boys and the other rangers, the only injuries were a few scrapes. All three of the teachers are in stable condition and the Silver Guardians are combing through the USJ for any stragglers. Tsukachi answered. Relax. Both Izuku and Connor let out a sigh of relief, grateful that their classmates were alive and unharmed. That's good to hear. Izuku said. No kidding. Connor agreed. If you heroes hadn't risked your lives, the students would never have made it. You all saved a lot of lives today. The detective praised, then turned his attention to Connor. That goes for you and the Rangers as well. If you hadn't stepped in, I don't want to think about what could have happened, but if I'm being honest, I kind of wished you didn't destroy that monster. Yeah, we didn't really have a choice. Connor shrugged sheepishly. I mean, the thing wasn't exactly a villain, just a mindless beast that was uglier than anything I've seen before. Plus, it's kind of hard to capture a monster when it's the size of a building. At the very least, we did send the data about the creature to Dr. Tatsumi and Miss Rawlings. Hopefully, they'll find something about that thing and send it your way. At the very least, I can be grateful for that. Tsukachi said. You're not seeing the whole picture, Tsukachi. Those students also risked their lives. They fought as hard as us, some of them even harder. I don't think there's ever been any groups of first years who experienced a real fight like this so early in their training. They not only survived, they learned what it means to be a pro. Those villains and monsters made a mistake in attacking them. Those classes are strong. They're filled with courage and drive. All Might pointed out, partially feeling responsible for not being there to protect them. Mark my words, they'll become great heroes. Gee, thanks all might. Izuku said, touched by the words his idol said. Detective. Connor said. I know it's not my place to say this, but I recommend making a call to the Prime Minister and having him put the self-defense force on alert. Isn't that a bit extreme? Izuku asked. Quantrons and cogs fly their own fighters. Quadrifighters and velocifighters. Connor pointed out. While they don't have them yet, it's a best guess that Olympus and his allies will seek every advantage they can get over their enemies. Though they are weak, it's best that all pilots and soldiers train to prepare themselves for any impending attack, and I'm not just saying that because the SDF has newer F-22s and revived F-14s. I always forget you're also an aircraft buff. Izuku said with a sweat drop. You can thank some of those pre-Quirk movies with dogfights for that. Connor said with a chuckle, then headed for the door. Right now, I got to have a chat with the three who helped us out at the USJ. The sun had already started to set over UA as Connor left the famed high school. He spotted several familiar SUVs belonging to the Japanese branch of the Silver Guardians. At least 15 men and women, all dressed in navy blue uniforms, black boots, black gloves, body armor, baseball caps, all of whom were talking with the UA staff, save for one who wore a red beret over his blonde hair. Their eyes met with Connor's eyes as a group of Silver Guardians armed with the TDI Vector submachine guns, one of the standard-issue firearms of the organization, moved towards the USJ, no doubt searching for any remaining villains that might be hiding. Connor gave the commander a salute, which the commander returned to the Red Ranger in return before he felt something furry rubbing up against his leg. Looking down, he saw that it was his dog. Well, looks like someone was waiting for me. He chuckled and knelt down to pick up Cody. Ah, was someone worried about me? He cooed, getting an excited lick from his puppy. He wasn't the only one. Came the voice of Nijire, who was holding Cody's leash in her hand. I heard you guys were attacked by villains. It must have been crazy. More like, alarming. Connor answered. But that's not the worst part. Olympus was there and he killed some villains, even stole their quirks, and if that wasn't bad enough, Golder, Elgar and Ecliptor are back, and they've brought some more foot soldiers to the party. Putty patrollers, Quantrons, and cogs are also back. Are you serious? I thought those things were destroyed. Nijire exclaimed in alarm. Wait, Golder, Elgar and Ecliptor are back. Are they zombies? Not zombies. Zombies don't talk and swing a sword like a real swordsman. Connor answered, taking the leash from Nijire and hooked it onto Cody's leash. First Korag, and now these guys. Things are getting interesting. Interesting? You could have died. Nijire shouted. You and the other first years were attacked and almost killed, and you find the whole thing interesting? Though I will say it was cool that you and the others used a different megazord, but is this all just a big game to you? People will more on you if you die, and I'm one of them. Whoa there, pump the brakes and chill out. Connor said, putting his hands in front of his body. I'm only saying it's interesting that Olympus would bring back all these guys when he's got plenty of demons to bring back from the shadow world. He then pulled his hands back to his side. I know for a fact that this isn't a game you can restart after one loss. My best friend almost died trying to save me when Big Demon Prince was prepared to run me through. Look, I care for you, Connor. Nijire admitted. I mean, we are friends after all, and I'd be really devastated if you ended up dying. She then smiled. Besides, it would get really boring if you weren't around. Yeah, I am kind of a... He started to say before he felt his heart racing at 100 miles per hour. Just being around Hato made him feel happy. Well, I think I better get going. I don't want T to keep the others waiting. I'll give you a call sometime later. He stuttered, then walked away with Cody by his side, leaving behind a smiling Nijire. Rescue Bay/Super Rescue Lab. The other Rangers, Dr. Tatsumi and Jessica, looked at Diabolico, Loyax and Villimax who stood by the repaired rescue zords, with Diabolico examining the zords. I always wondered if these machines would ever be rebuilt after Olympus and I destroyed them. Now that I know they've been repaired, you Rangers now have a chance to defeat Olympus and his allies. The Gold Demon said impressively. They are no Galactabeasts, but they are strong. Villimax agreed. Perhaps, there is more to them than meets the eye. Not that I don't appreciate the praise you're giving me and the doctor for repairing the zords, but can we get back to the topic at hand? Why exactly did you help us back at the USJ? Lena asked. The Yellow Ranger is correct. Loyax replied. We should explain the situation to the Rangers, now that the Red Ranger has finally arrived. He added, just as Connor entered the rescue bay, with Cody still by his side. The puppy growled at the sight of the monsters and ran towards Villimax, preparing to attack, but the moment the puppy came to a stop in front of him, Villimax knelt down and allowed the dog to sniff his hand, which caused the dog to calm down. If we were truly your enemy, Villimax would have drawn his sword and cut down your canine companion. He's a protective one, for a dog his size. Connor shrugged. Sorry I'm late. I just wanted to see if Izuku was alright and if he's doing well. He'll recover. He then turned to Diabolico. I want to thank you for saving my best friend's life. It is only one of many deeds in my quest to right the wrongs I've committed in service of Olympus's mother. Diabolico answered. As I'm sure you're aware, Olympus has resurrected Elgar, Golder and Ecliptor who have bolstered his ranks with additional soldiers. What you don't know is that among the ranks of his revived allies, are Darkonda, Deviate, Trecheron, Rito Revolto, Molter, Flurius, Miratrix, Scorpina, and General Vengix, Automon, Garruk, Steelin and Tetzla. Villimax added. And if I'm correct, we'll have to contend with Stingwingers and the forces of both Flurius and Molter in the future. An all-star cast of monsters. Anthony said with worry. Isn't Myatrix the one who shape-shifts? TJ asked. Yes, which means she could easily infiltrate UA High as one of the teachers. Probably would be Midnight since that teacher is crazy when it comes to her interest in that KNKY stuff. If she ends up bound and gagged, I get the feeling she'll be enjoying it. Melissa said with a drop of sweat down the back of her head. Yeah, that sounds like Miss Midnight. Connor agreed, then turned back to the three monsters. I get why Diabolico came to assist us, but what about you two? He said to Villimax and Loyax. It is because of what Olympus has planned. Villimax shouted. He plans on acquiring the strongest quirks in the world and use them to enhance the strength of his monsters. He even plans to target children. There is no honor in such acts, and I refuse to serve the one who sides himself with the one who played a part in Scorpius's destruction, all for the sake of gaining more power. He then calmed down. You may not know this, but before I served Trakenna, I was a freelance mercenary who fought not for evil, but for the cause of justice. I traveled the galaxy, defending the weak and helpless from those who would oppress them. I trained many warriors over the years, who used what I taught them to protect their people. I will admit, Trakenna intrigued me, but as I served her, I saw her quest for vengeance would only bring destruction and death. I should have left her the moment Deviate joined the ranks of Captain Unity. As for myself, I was reminded of who I truly was by the Yellow Ranger. If I were to serve Olympus, it would dishonor her memory and what she did for me. I will not serve the forces of evil ever again. I will fight for good, as your ally. Loyax added. There was a long silence before Tatsumi spoke up. At first, we only assumed that it was demons we would have to fight, but with this new information, it appears that we have more enemies to contend with. Korag alone would be a challenge, as clearly shown by the damage he's done to the Lightspeed Megazord during your first encounter with him. Despite his honor, he is a dangerous adversary. And considering we've got more enemies to deal with, we'll need all the help we can get. Jessica added. But I would like to point out that if someone sees a demon walking around in broad daylight, that will cause a panic and might mistake Diabolico for a villain. I think I have a solution to that. Diabolico said, conjuring up a spell that made his entire body glow before the light faded. His new human form was a muscular-looking 20-year-old white-haired man of Caucasian origin, with blackish eyes. His clothing consisted of a pair of red pants with 2 black belts wrapped around his thigh, a black leather belt, black military-style boots, black fingerless gloves, a red coat with an upturned collar and short sleeves with black cuffs. Underneath the coat, he wore a black long-sleeved shirt, with a red vest with black clasps over it. I assumed this would be better suited for living amongst the humans of world. The Rangers and Jessica both looked at Diabolico's new form and all of them thought the same thing. Diabolico's form looked very familiar, but they couldn't remember where they saw it from. Well, it certainly won't draw too much attention. Kind of looks like you're a college student or military recruit. Maybe a wrestler, but at least you won't scare children. TJ said unsure. Well, appearance-wise aside. Connor said, clearing his throat. I just want to say thanks for saving my best friend's life. I don't want to think about what would have happened if you didn't intervene when you did. He then held out his hand to Diabolico, which the demon grasped in return. You're most welcome. Diabolico replied. Now then, can I meet the one who assisted me against the battlings? The White Ranger, he asked. Wait. White Ranger, the Rangers exclaimed in shock at once. Apartment complex. Mustafa. Having returned to his apartment after the fight at the USJ, the White Ranger, unmorphed, turned the water on and stepped into the shower, water rushing over his body. His brown hair became drenched with water as he stared at the wall of his shower, thinking about the recent events. War is coming, and it will not be like anything the world has ever seen. They thought. Night had fallen over the city of Tokyo as a group of men armed with submachine guns stood outside an abandoned warehouse, keeping an eye out for any heroes or police that got too curious for their own good. Inside the warehouse, some other men were preparing their getaway vehicle while one of them bit down on a sandwich while the TV played. Continuing our top story of today's earlier attack at the UA training facility, the USJ. The group leading the attack was known as the League of Villains, whose goal was to kill All Might, the #1 hero in the world, but were thwarted by the efforts of both the UA staff and the Lightspeed Power Rangers, who destroyed a giant monster using a different megazord. The anchorwoman reported while one of the men counted the money in a suitcase that was given to them. The image on the TV then changed to that of an appealing 17-year-old Japanese-American girl with black hair and red eyes, wearing a black dress, black gloves with a flower in her hair and silver hairband, walking down a red carpet and waving to her fans. In other news, there is still no word from the kidnappers of actress and model Akane Cyrus, despite being paid $20 million. Miss Cyrus was kidnapped from her home just weeks prior to the Hosu incident. Miss Cyrus is the leading lady in an upcoming action-adventure film, which is said to feature the latest special effects and stunts. Any information leading to the whereabouts of the girl are to be sent to the police immediately. The anchorwoman continued. Hey, kid. Check it out, you're on TV. One of the men, a rather muscular-looking man, said to the side where said actress was currently tied to a pole, wearing the exact same dress, gloves, shoes, flower, and hairband as was depicted in the report. Rope was wrapped around her body, pinning her arms behind her back, and pushing her arms and elbows together. More rope was wrapped around her upper and lower chest, almost forcing her chest out a bit, while 2 separate ropes were used to keep her legs tied together. A pair of clothes were tied around her mouth and nose, keeping her silent while she looked down in despair. Everything happened so fast. 1 minute she preparing to leave her home for a photo shoot for her upcoming move, where she played the female lead, a young woman who lived in the 1920s era of New York City who was the love interest of the male lead, when an armored SUV blocked the limo taking her to the shoot and armed men in masks pulled her from the limousine and she was forced into the SUV where she was tied up, blindfolded and then gagged while her bodyguards were surprisingly involved with the abduction. She never once thought of herself as a selfish girl because she was an actress. She donated her time for various charities across the globe, hoping to become a hero, despite not having a quirk. She cared more for her friends and family, who meant more to her than her own social status or fortune, something she learned from a meeting with two old friends, one of whom once had a crush on her but remained close friends after she turned him down. Despite the ransom being paid, she knew that her kidnappers had no plans of letting her go, and silently prayed for someone to save her. Her prayers were answered as outside the warehouse, one of the men on guard duty was about to light a cigarette when something caught his ears. Raising his Uzi, he scanned the area only to find nothing, but the moment he turned around, a white-gloved fist slammed into his face, knocking him out as stepping into the moonlight, was a white ninja. Dragging the unconscious body out of the moonlight and their weapon, the ninja leapt to the roof of the warehouse and peered through the skyline. Inside the warehouse were 8 guards, one of which was armed with a handgun, meaning he needed to be careful or else the hostage would be killed by a ricochet. Below him, the last of the ransom money was counted as the leader of the kidnappers tossed the stack into the suitcase, then turned to another kidnapper. "It's all here. Take care of the kid." He ordered another kidnapper, one who was practically grinning as they brandished their handgun, an old CZ-75, as they walked towards Akane, who whimpered in fear as the man walked over and pointed his handgun at the captive girl, his finger poised over the trigger and ready to pull it. Before they could pull the trigger, the sound of breaking glass filled their ears as the mysterious ninja crashed through the skyline and landed in front of the kidnapper, knocking their weapon out of their hands before a swift uppercut was delivered to the kidnapper's jaw. "Get him," the leader shouted as the other kidnappers charged towards the ninja, brandishing various weapons such as clubs or metal pipes. One of the kidnappers swung their pipe at the ninja, but they ducked down to avoid the attack, then followed up with a sweep kick that knocked the thug to the ground. A series of punches and jabs from the ninja dazed a second kidnapper long enough for a well-placed sidekick to the kidnapper's chest sent them flying back into the barrels that the TV was sitting on. A roundhouse kick to the third kidnapper's face sent them down to the ground, but the fourth kidnapper swung their pipe at the ninja, who ducked and dodged each swing before he caught the pipe between his hands before the pipe was thrown from the kidnapper's hands. A sweep kick to the kidnapper's feet knocked them to the ground, flat on their back, followed by an elbow drop to the face as the fifth kidnapper drew a small knife, ready to slice the ninja, but the moment their blade contacted the ninja's body, they vanished, leaving only their ninja outfit. Confused, the kidnapper was caught off guard when the mystery ninja appeared behind them and delivered a hard chop to their neck. The 2 guards working with the kidnappers charged the ninja from both sides, but the ninja backflipped out of the path, resulting in the 2 kidnappers knocking themselves out when ran into each other. The ninja looked around, seeing if the kidnappers were unconscious before he moved to untie the girl, but as he did, an energy blast from the leader of the kidnappers stopped him. Turning around, he saw that the leader of the kidnappers had his hand raised. "Who are you? Why did you kidnap this girl?" the ninja demanded. "Wouldn't you like to know?" the lead kidnapper scoffed, waving his hand in front of him to reveal his true form, Darkonda. "Let's just say I have some very powerful friends who need some money for some very important research." The girl was just a means to an end. "So, Olympus is using some monsters to make some money?" "Well, whatever he's planning, he won't succeed," the ninja proclaimed, pulling a certain golden device from his back that made Akane gasp through her gags as the ninja shouted. "It's morphin time. Tatsumi Disaster Prevention Center. Mustafa, Japan. Saturday, 8:45 a.m. Melissa yawned as she stretched her arms as the sun rose over the Tatsumi Disaster Prevention Center. UA was closed the day after the USJ attack, so the students had an extra day off to study or relax after the eventful day. Her hair was a mess as she swung her legs over her bed and put her glasses on and grabbed her hairbrush, then headed for the bathroom. Anthony, TJ, and Lena were already up, having breakfast with the professor, who was enjoying some toast while the other rangers helped themselves to some eggs and bacon. "Hey, where's Connor?" TJ asked. "He woke up early, said he wanted to check on his friend, and he did take the dog out for a walk." Diabolico, or Dante as he was called in his human form, said as he walked into the kitchen. "Villamax and Loyax returned to UA to talk with the principal about our circumstances and reasons for helping you. If Nizu is the kind of person he is, then convincing him will be easy. Nizu is an understanding guy, but it's Endeavor that might be the problem. Anthony said. Endeavor? Diabolico asked. The flame hero, Endeavor. Better known as NG Todoroki. He's ranked number 2 on the hero charts, despite having the most resolved cases than any other hero. Mondo answered. His quirk allows him to manipulate and control very powerful and intense flames at his will. It's a ranged quirk, and the flames are able to cover his entire body. The guy's been trying to surpass All Might for years, but he hasn't come close. Not to mention the guy isn't exactly one of the friendliest heroes. TJ added. He came to the States once, but I never got the chance to meet him, seeing as he was on hero business. I even heard he doesn't have a good relationship with his kids. Lena pointed out. I could tell that Shoto has both his dad's fire quirk but seems to use his ice powers more than his fire powers. My guess, the guy hasn't won any Father of the Year awards. Sounds like the type of hero who would be against your assistance if you fought alongside him. Diabolico surmised, grabbing a piece of toast from the table, just after Melissa exited the bathroom, her hair brushed and not looking like a mess. Connor isn't back yet. I thought he would have returned by now. Melissa sighed. I bet he got held up by a cute girl asking for an autograph. I don't think your brother cares about things like fame and fortune. Diabolico said. If I'm right, he's more concerned about his friend, Izuku was it? Yeah, Connor's been really close to Izuku a lot longer than any of us. I mean, he did stay with Izuku and his mom when he was an exchange student. Those two are practically brothers and get along well. I mean, he was practically Izuku's only friend, considering the kid was thought to be quirkless until months ago. Lena pointed out. It's good for him to have a friend. Mondo said. Friends are important, no matter what age the world is in. Too bad Bakugou doesn't see it that way. Melissa grumbled. Still, I wish he'd call us. I'm kind of worried. Midoriya residence. 9 a.m. Oh. I missed you so much. Inko wailed as she burst into tears, holding Connor in a bear hug that practically made Connor's face turn blue. And you're the Red Ranger. I'm so proud of you. Can't, breath, too, much, love, going, to, die. Connor said between gasps of breath before Inko finally let him go. Geez Mrs. M, you really have one heck of a bear hug. I almost thought you were going to break my back. Oh, I can't just control myself, you know that. Inko replied with a smile, before she noticed Cody. Oh, I didn't know you had a dog. He's so cute. Cody barked happily and leapt into the older woman's arms, then licked her face. Oh, who's a good boy? You are, yes you are, she cooed. Connor chuckled as Izuku exited his room, wearing a t-shirt, sweatpants, and his usual red sneakers. And here's the man of the hour. How you doing, Izuku? Feeling better after yesterday? Connor asked. Yeah, I'm a lot better actually. My wounds are feeling much better and I'm ready for today. Izuku answered. Great. Connor said with a smile, then turned to his friend's mom. Sorry to cut and run, but you mind looking after Cody for a while, he asked the older woman. Oh, don't worry. I'll look after him while you and my son are out. I can already tell that he and I will get along just fine. Inko promised. Thanks, I'll pay for anything he might wreck while we're out. Connor told the older woman, before he and Izuku headed out of the apartment, leaving Inko behind with an eager puppy who was smiling, just like her. Leaving the apartment, the two headed towards Dagoba Beach where All Might had helped Izuku get a handle with his quirk. Not surprisingly, Connor found it hard to believe that Izuku's training helped clean the beach of all the trash and returned it to its natural beauty. So, you ready for this, Izuku? Connor asked as he removed his jacket and tossed it aside, taking a fighting stance. Whoa, hold on. Are you still sure you want to do this? Izuku asked, practically shaking in his shoes. I mean, my quirk is really strong, and I don't want to end up hurting you if I use it. I don't. He muttered, getting Connor to chuckle. Curse my bad habits. Who said we'd be fighting with powers? Connor said teasingly. Izuku, there are going to be times when you can't rely on your power, and considering you still have some trouble controlling it, it's best to develop some combat skills without the use of your quirk. He then walked through the sand and placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. I told you before, I'll do everything I can to help you become a great hero, and the first step is making sure you don't always rely on your quirk. Can't have you breaking your bones whenever you fight a villain, now, can we? Izuku smiled, feeling a sense of happiness wash over him. After so many years of being an outcast and constantly bullied for not having a quirk and being alone, he finally found a friend who was so much like him. One continuously defended him and stood up for him, because they were so much alike, even after he received his quirk from All Might. Yeah. You're right. He exclaimed and was ready to spar with his friend. But, before they could begin, they were rudely interrupted when a dozen putties materialized around them, surrounding them. Was this what you had in mind when you said I can't always rely on my quirk? Izuku asked. No. This is not what I had in mind. Connor replied as the putties surrounded them both. Guess our sparring match will have to wait, he exclaimed, just as one of the putties threw its fist towards Connor, who batted the fist away, then kicked the monster down into the sand. Izuku panicked as a rock blade nearly took his head off but ducked just in time before delivering a kick to the creature's chest, despite his fear. He thought about channeling his powers into his legs but knew that if he broke the bones in his legs, then he'd be out of the fight in a second. Ducking down, he kicked a putty's leg out from under them, knocking them onto their back, before he grabbed the lid of a nearby trash can and used it to block a punch from another putty. You guys make this look so easy. I really need to step up my training. He sighed, only for his temporary shield to be knocked away by another putty. Fight now. Mutter later. Connor exclaimed, using both hands to catch the arm of another putty, which he then spun around and kicked it away. Missed. Missed. Oh. Missed again, he teased as several putties tried to swing their blades at him, missing each and every swing. Of all the times I wished I had a blade weapon, this would be one of them, he said aloud, backflipping out of the way of another putty's attack. Which one? Izuku asked. Lightsaber. Beam saber. Photon sword. I don't care. Connor exclaimed, kicking another putty away before one managed to sneak up behind him, grabbed him and threw him to the sand, face first. Ugh. Yuck. I got sand in my mouth, he groaned. Whoa. Izuku exclaimed as he too was thrown into the sand, right next to Connor as the putties started to surround them. Why do I feel like these guys are tougher than they were originally? The green-haired quirk inheritor asked aloud. Your guess is as good as mine. Connor grumbled, standing back up and spitting a bit more sand out of his mouth as the putties surrounded the two of them. It was then at that moment, a flash of green light flew through the air and landed right in front of them, revealing it to be the form of the Green Ranger. No way, he exclaimed in awe. Dragon Dagger, the Green Ranger shouted, drawing the legendary weapon, and charged towards the putties, slashing at them as they tried in vain to defeat the mysterious ranger, only to be cut down. Some things never change, no matter the era, the ranger mused, just as the putties then vanished. DMN. They ran away. Well, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Thanks for the help. Connor said, standing up and brushing the sand off him, as did Izuku. I'd say we could have taken them, but I'd be lying. Oh, and I also want to say thanks for your help with Korag the other day, but if you don't mind me asking, just who are you? Not your replacement, that's for certain. The Green Ranger chuckled. All you need to know is that I'm here to help you and the other Lightspeed Rangers. I'll see you around. Then in a flash of light and green energy, the Green Ranger vanished as quickly as they appeared, leaving both Izuku and Connor with more questions than answers. Rescue Bay / Rescue Lab. 10 a.m. The Green Ranger saved you and Deku. The other Rangers exclaimed. Yeah, they did. Connor answered. It's strange, the Green Ranger powers were lost years ago when Lord Zed created his Dark Rangers, but then I remember that the Dragon Power coin wasn't destroyed along with the other coins and restored years later. Yet, for some reason, I think that the Green Ranger and White Ranger are one and the same. He said, hand on his chin. Well, aside from you trying to look like Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're not wrong. TJ agreed. If they are one and the same, how are they able to use both powers? I can think of only one way. Jessica replied as she walked into the lab. But first, you'll want to take a look at the news. The TV in the lab was turned on and the news played something rather interesting. Actress and model Akane Cyrus was rescued late last night from her kidnappers, all of whom were defeated single-handedly. Based on testimonies from the kidnappers, the one who rescued her was the White Ranger who she said fought a monster who took the form as the leader of the kidnappers. As to the motives, an investigation is currently underway. The reporter said. At first, I thought it was one of you Rangers, but then when they mentioned a White Ranger, I realized that the only way someone could morph into both the Green and White Rangers, was if they had the MSTR morpher. Jessica explained, pressing a few buttons on a console, and brought up a display of the said morpher. What exactly is the MSTR morpher? Diabolico asked. It's an upgraded power morpher used by Tommy Oliver, allowing him to access the powers of the Green and White Mighty Morphin Rangers, Red Zeo and Turbo Rangers and the Black Dino Thunder Ranger. All of the powers that Tommy had during his time as a Ranger, he had access to them all. Papa told me about that morpher when he was doing some research on Ranger technology a few years ago. Melissa pointed out. He said the morpher was lost when SPD pulled out of Earth after the arrival of Quirks and the only one who could use the morpher is a descendant of Tommy Oliver. So, that means whoever's using it, is a descendant of Tommy Oliver. Lena deduced. Only problem is, there are about 1,000 or so people with the last name Oliver on the planet, so it's not like we can just question them all about if they have the MSTR morpher. A morpher with the power of 5 Rangers. It is truly a powerful weapon to use against our enemies. Diabolico said amazed. I'm just glad that Akane was saved by whoever owns the morpher. Connor said with a sigh. Hearing that she was kidnapped, I was worried but at least she's alright. Well, you did have a crush on her back when you were kids, despite being several years older than you. Melissa teased. Hey. I was young and didn't really think. At the very least, I'm glad we're friends. Connor said in his defense. But back to the topic at hand, why would the wielder of the MSTR morpher show up now of all times? Why wait until now? Maybe, they were training themselves. Mondo theorized. A morpher with 5 powers would be too much of a strain on a person's body, without conditioning themselves to handle the power. Like all of you, you had to train with your new powers before you came to Japan and that took months. Perhaps, they didn't want to fight when they weren't ready. Makes sense. Anthony said in agreement. I mean, it's like with soldiers and pilots. They have to train before they can see combat and that doesn't happen right away. But that still doesn't tell us who the mysterious Ranger is. Diabolico reminded, just as the alarm sounded. Sounds like Olympus is up to his old tricks again. Mint. Put it on screen. Tatsumi ordered the little robot, who did as he was instructed. Appearing on one of the screens, was an army-colored frog-like ninja monster leading an army of putties through the streets of Mustafa, with Golder and Rito by his side. I don't recognize that demon. That's not a demon. Diabolico stated. It's a different monster, but I don't recognize it. Demon or not, we've got work to do. Connor said determinedly, grabbing his jacket and running out of the lab, followed by the other Rangers. At the same time, in a certain apartment, the same teenager from days ago locked the door to his apartment before running down the stairs and into a nearby alley. Downtown Mustafa. 10:15 a.m. Bystanders panicked as local heroes and silver guardians engaged the putties, while Frog Ninja swung his sword and cut down several silver guardians with their katana, blocking the blasts fired at him by the soldiers. "You're all a bunch of weaklings. Give me a real challenge, for I am the Dark Warrior," the monster said ruthlessly. "Bah, they are all weaklings. But destroying them will bring the rangers to us and their destruction," Golder boasted, engulfing his sword in flames before swinging it and sent a wave of flames towards those that opposed them. Rito, on the other hand, was helping himself to a burger that was left behind by one of the bystanders. "Nice burger, needs more bugs," he said, tossing the burger away. Before he aimed the tip of his sword, which was then struck by red lighting, followed by a barrage of red energy ball that struck a building and sent glass falling to the ground from the broken windows. "Boy, those power dweebs are late. Maybe they didn't like the invitation the prince sent." He shrugged. "You want to say that again?" Connor shouted as he and the other rangers rushed to the scene, already morphed and ready for battle. "Focus on getting these people out of here. We'll deal with these guys," he shouted to a local hero who nodded and did as the ranger said. "So nice of you to show up, power pests. I am the Dark Warrior and I've been brought back to destroy you all," the Dark Knight boasted. "Wait. The Dark Warrior? I thought he was destroyed," Anthony questioned. "Looks like Olympus is resurrecting more than just fallen lieutenants," Lena answered, not taking her eyes off the enemy. "Doesn't matter who they brought back. We'll stop them," TJ said with confidence. "Just keep your guard up. There's no telling what this sorry excuse for a ninja has up his sleeves," Melissa advised. "Attack!" Golder shouted as the putties charged towards the rangers. "Let's do it, guys!" Connor shouted, drawing his blaster in baton mode, as did the other rangers who immediately went on the offensive. Twirling his baton into a reverse grip style, Connor raised his to counter a pair of rock blades, taking a knee before he pushed the blades up and slashed them across the chest. Blaster mode. "Let's break some rocks," he quipped, switching his baton to blaster mode and fired several shots that shattered a couple of putties. Lena kicked one of the putties away with a sidekick, then ducked down as another putty swung its large ball at her, but she was able to push the putty back before sweeping it off its feet. A series of swings and slashes from her baton cut down several of the foot soldiers before a jet of flame was shot towards her, courtesy of Rito's flamethrower cannon. "Alright, who gave the walking pile of bones a flamethrower?" she groaned. "I'll have you know, that it's my weapon and I'm ready to roast me some rangers," Rito answered, raising his cannon and fired a series of shots that dazed Lena long enough for him to get a good hit on her. Melissa ducked down and punched two putties in the chest, then leapt in the air and kicked them aside. Another putty swung its rock sword at her, but she backflipped out of the way and drew her blaster, firing at the soldiers. Another shot from her blaster shattered one of the foot soldiers, but a blast from the Dark Warrior's cannon slammed into her chest and sent her flying back into a car. "I thought picking on girls was old-fashioned," she groaned, before the Dark Warrior swung his katana at her, forcing her on the defensive. Anthony and TJ engaged Golder in sword combat, but Golder's swordsmanship was far superior to their own, giving the flying monkey the upper hand. Anthony swung his baton at Golder, but missed while Golder shot a stream of fire towards the Green Ranger from his sword. TJ's attacks were also countered and he was struck by a slash from Golder's sword, grabbed by the neck and then thrown a good distance into a nearby wall. "DMN. These guys are tougher than last time," he cursed. Connor cut down a putty before he turned his head to see his sister slashed across the chest by the Dark Warrior's katana. "Melissa," he shouted and dashed towards his sister, only for the Dark Warrior to appear in front of him and then brought his katana down on him, followed by a kick to the chest that sent him to his allies. "I don't get it. How can these guys be stronger than us? We've got more tricks than before," the Dark Warrior exclaimed, firing his cannon at the Rangers and knocked them to the ground. "This was too easy. I was hoping for more of a challenge." "You want a challenge? Then you got one," came an unknown voice from nearby as the 5 Lightspeed Rangers struggled on the ground. Over there. Connor shouted and looked in the direction of the nearby footbridge, revealing it to be a teenager, but not one he knew. Get out of here. It's too dangerous. Oh, I know it's dangerous, considering these guys are the same ones my great-grandfather fought. The teenager said, leaping off the bridge and to the ground, standing in front of the Rangers. Let's see if we can't even the odds. Who are you? Melissa asked. The stranger shrugged and chuckled. I suppose I should introduce myself. My name is Jason Thomas Oliver. And no. It can't be. That's impossible, a shocked Golder said in panic, his face turning pale white at the mention of the last name while Rito's bones lost all color on his face. Oh no. You're. Rito stuttered, as Jason smirked and pulled out the MSTR morpher. That's right. I'm the descendant of Tommy Oliver, he announced and then shouted. It's morphing time. Dragonzord, he shouted as he held out the MSTR morpher. The symbol of the Green Ranger appeared behind him as a green and white suit with white gloves and boots formed around his body, followed by a helmet materializing and a set of golden armor formed around his torso. Mighty Morphing Green Ranger, he announced. Oh. Golder and Rito said horrified, but the Dark Warrior was unfazed. No way, the 5 Lightspeed Rangers exclaimed as the new Green Ranger leapt towards the putties. Drawing his dagger, the Green Ranger swung his dagger at the putties, slashing one of them across the chest while delivering a strong punch to another one. A sweep kick to another putty was followed by an elbow drop to the chest of the creature as the Lightspeed Rangers got back to their feet and rushed to assist the new Green Ranger, not noticing that Golder and Rito had teleported away, leaving the Dark Warrior and the rest of the putties to fight them. Connor raised his left hand and blocked a punch from another putty, then fired his blaster at several other putties before a blast from the Dark Warrior's laser cannon impacted the ground below his feet. You're mine, Red Ranger. You'll have to go through me first. Jason shouted, tackling the Dark Warrior to the ground, then backflipped to join Connor's side. 2 Rangers are better than 1, he exclaimed as the Dark Warrior got back to his feet. I'll destroy you all. The Dark Warrior shouted as the other Rangers joined the 2 of them, their blasters in baton mode. Charging towards them with his katana in hand, the Dark Warrior swung his blade at Melissa, knocking her aside while a punch to Lena's chest threw her aside. A few blasts from TJ and Anthony's blasters slammed into the monster's back, but the monster just shrugged off the blasts like they were nothing, slashing both Rangers across the chest. This guy's really starting to bug me. Connor snarled. Then why don't you try this? Jason said and placed a hand on Connor, transferring his shield to him. This should help you. I owe you one. Connor exclaimed, switching his blaster to baton mode and charged towards the Dark Warrior with both his weapon and the dragon dagger in hand. Take this, he shouted and slashed the Dark Warrior across the chest several times, this time causing the monster some pain before the shield and dagger returned to Jason. Let's finish this. Rescue bird. Melissa shouted as the mechanical bird was launched from the rescue bay and transformed into unilaser mode, which the 6 Rangers grabbed with Jason holding the weapon. It only seems fair that you pull the trigger. Works for me. Jason said while the other Rangers braced him. Ready. Anthony and TJ shouted. Aim. Lena and Melissa added. Fire. Dragon Calamity Breaker. Connor and Jason shouted. Jason pulled the trigger, firing a massive beam infused with Jason's powers, that slammed into the Dark Warrior and destroyed the monster and reduced him into numerous pieces. Mission accomplished. Connor said with a salute, then turned to Jason. We owe you one. Don't thank me yet, we've got more work to do. Jason reminded the Lightspeed Rangers. He was right as from a building above them, a monster growth card embedded itself into the remains of the Dark Warrior as Jinxer cast his spell. Warrior of Darkness, I call upon you to grow, he chanted as the remains of the monster transformed into small bats and converged together. Unite and destroy. The now reanimated and large dark warrior roared as it looked down at the 6 rangers. Why can't they ever just stay dead? Connor groaned before bringing his morpher to his face. Rail rescues. On track, he shouted. The 5 massive trains rocketed down the tracks from the rescue bay before coming to a stop, opening their compartments allowing the 5 rescue zords to launch. Once they entered the cockpits, the Lightspeed Rangers formed the Lightspeed Megazord and prepared for battle. The Dark Warrior, however, was more than ready as he swung his new chain and sickle, slashing at the Megazord with the sickle part. Sparks erupted from within the Megazord as it was slashed again and again. We just got this thing repaired. Melissa groaned. I'm not going to let the Doc and Jessica work overtime to repair this again. Lena groaned. Nearby, Korag appeared on the roof of another building and watched the ongoing battle, but his concern was the new ranger, who he saw had ran to the top of a building and drew his dagger. I need Dragonzord power now, he shouted and played his flute, calling upon the massive dragon who rose from the sea and charged towards the Dark Warrior, who had just fired his cannon and the Lightspeed Megazord, knocking it back. The chain from the Dark Warriors wrapped around the Lightspeed Megazord, immobilizing it as the ninja monster swung its sickle at the Megazord, damaging it. Hang tough guys. We can't let him beat us. Connor told his teammates just as the monster was about to swing its sickle again. This time, the tail of the Dragonzord countered the swing and clawed at the monster just as Jason sat in his Zord's cockpit. You guys, okay? He asked. Never better. TJ answered as the monster readied itself for another attack. Ladder bomber, he shouted, unleashing a bombardment of long-range punches that nailed the Dark Warrior in the chest, sending him flying. Rangers. I'm sending the rescue jet your way now. Use its weapon mode. Jessica shouted over the communicator as the miniature F-20 arrived on scene, firing its cannons at the Dark Warrior, dazing the monster before it circled back around and transformed. The wings of the jet folded up, while the tail fin shifted into a hand grip and the nose of the jet opened up to reveal a barrel. Jet Blaster. Online. The Rangers shouted as they took aim with their new weapon. First, the Dragonzord opened up with a barrage of missiles, dazing the Dark Warrior before the blaster charged up with a glowing barrel. Fire, the Rangers all shouted as a massive blast exited the barrel and slammed into the Dark Warrior, who then fell backwards and exploded. Interesting. It appears that this new ranger is in control of that mechanical dragon. Korag mused from his position. I wonder what other tricks this new ranger has. I'll fight him and find out when the time is right. He finished before vanishing in a trail of dark energy. Rescue Lab/Rescue Bay. 12 p.m. After an eventful morning, the 5 Lightspeed Rangers and their new ally had returned to the rescue bay where he explained everything. Did Papa really send you to help us? Melissa asked. He did. Jason answered. Professor Shield sought me out during your training to prepare yourselves for UA. He figured that if Olympus were to resurrect forces other than demons, you'd need more than just 5 of you. And yet you didn't reveal yourself until after the USJ attack, where you assisted me in fending off the battlings. Diabolico said. Then why did you save Akane? Connor asked, holding Cody in his arms. I overheard some guys in the streets talking about a rumor that the ones responsible for kidnapping Miss Cyrus were acting odd when they saw them walking into a convenience store. They didn't buy anything, just looked around and didn't buy anything, then saw them transform into some kind of monster which I found out was a cog. I followed them and tracked them to an old warehouse in Tokyo where I saved her and fought against Darkonda who had taken the guise of the leader of the kidnappers. Jason explained. But why would Darkonda abduct a girl and demand a ransom? TJ asked. Maybe he was after the ransom. The kidnappers did demand a large ransom. Anthony theorized. I don't think that money is going to be used to renovate the Skull Cavern. Lena joked. I believe the money is for someone else and not Olympus. Villamax theorized. It's possible that they made an alliance with whoever created that Nomu and the creator needs the money to construct more of those creatures. An interesting theory, but how long does it take to create a Nomu? Loyax asked. Regardless of how long it takes to create a Nomu, I've got something I want to say. Connor said, putting Cody on the ground as he walked towards Jason. You saved a dear friend of mine and helped us not once, but 4 times. I think, I speak for all of us when I say that we would be honored if the descendant of Tommy Oliver were to join us. You don't even have to ask. Jason replied and held out his hand. I'm with you all the way. Then welcome to the team. Connor answered and shook the hand of their newest teammate. Skull Cavern. Another Green Ranger. Olympus's voice boomed as Golder and Rito kneeled before the Demon Prince. Are you certain of this? Yes, my prince. I'd recognize the Green Ranger powers anywhere. Golder reported. I'm only now just feeling the wounds inflicted upon me by Tommy Oliver returning. That ranger humiliated me time and time again, and I refuse to be humiliated by his descendant. Green. White. Red. Black. Can't the guy just choose one of those powers and just give us the other powers? Rito asked innocently, only to be bonked on the head from Jinxer's cane, who was standing nearby. What? What did I say? A stupid question. Jinxer spat. Not counting Rito's foolish question. Korag interjected, getting an annoyed groan from Rito. This new ranger is powerful. If this MSTR morpher of his allows him access to the white and green ranger powers, then it must have access to the red and black ranger's powers that this Tommy Oliver possessed in his life. An opponent like that would make for an interesting battle. Bah! Who cares about whether he'll make for a decent opponent? Darkonda scoffed, as he stepped into the throne room. Part 1 of the plan is complete. The doctor has the money he needs for his project. Now it's time for the second part. Molter, Flurious, and Ecliptor are in position now. Once they gather the necessary components, production can begin for our army. He added before vanishing. Remember, you all serve me as my generals, and I am in charge here. You will follow my orders. Olympus snapped, before calmed down. But it is as Darkonda said. Once we acquire the components, our army will have the firepower we need. General Venjix and his men are already working on constructing their new quadrifighters, and with the additional firepower we are about to gain, we will crush all those who oppose us. Hero or Ranger? Earth's atmosphere. After what seemed like months, the Astro megaship dropped out over the planet, staying hidden on the dark side of the moon as the 4 individuals stood on the bridge of the mighty ship. So, this is Earth. Looks a lot like how Grandpa described it in his stories. The brown-haired boy. And here I thought you'd still be mad that your sister tagged along with us and that she managed to pull out the pink quasar saber, Jack. The blonde-haired girl said teasingly. Oh, I am still mad that Emily tagged along, but I'm also impressed that she pulled the quasar saber from its stone. If we pulled ours, then that means Reina, Reggie, and Archie will be pulling out the other sabers as well. Let's just hope Reina can convince the Galactabeasts to come to our aid when we need them. Jack answered. Stacy, scan planet for the other astromorphers. If we receive Alpha's call, then we'll need a full team. Jack, you, and Emily see if you can get in touch with Nasada. If they are still around, our transmissions should be picked up on their scanners. The blonde-haired boy said. Got it, Chris. Jack and Stacy said, just as the blonde-haired, neon-pink-streaked, gray-blue-eyed teenage girl named Emily entered the bridge. So, this is Earth. Looks a lot like Miranoi. Emily noted. Did you check on Leo? Jack asked his sister. Yeah, he's fine. Little antsy, but he's doing all right. I think he's really looking forward running around again, considering we've been on this ship for several hours. Emily answered. Hey. You guys should check this out. The silver-dyed boy called out, having just patched the megaship into Earth's satellite system. Looks like Earth's changed more than we thought. Pressing a few buttons, he brought up on the main screen where they witnessed a giant dragon that appeared to be wearing a dress flap its massive wings, blowing away several humans who were carrying money bags, then pinning them down with her massive claws. Another human had flames shooting out from all over his body, sending a flaming fist into the stomach of an armed human, while another, more muscular human with a big smile carried several people out of a flaming bus. "Fear not, citizens. Help has arrived. You're safe because I am here," the man exclaimed. "Looks like something out of those comic books Mom and Dad brought with them from Earth. But I don't think that's Superman or even the Hulk." Stacy noted. "Deka, can you tell us who those people are?" "The dragon is known as Ryuko Tatsuma, her hero name is Ryukyu, the dragoon hero. The flaming man is known as Endeavor, the flame hero, and the muscular hero is known as All Might, the #1 hero in the world and known as the symbol of peace." Deka reported. Based on available information, these three are pro-heroes, with Ryuko being the youngest of the three. "Anything about those powers of theirs?" Chris asked. "It is the nature of their quirks. Endeavor's quirk is called Hellflame, Ryuko's quirk is a transformation type that allows her to transform herself into a dragon. All information regarding All Might's quirk is mostly speculation and rumors." Deka reported. "There's something else I found. It looks like the Lightspeed Rangers are back and have already made a name for themselves." The silver-dyed boy added. "Kane, see if you can find anything else about those Lightspeed Rangers. We're going to be working with them a lot, I'm certain about that." Chris instructed. "I'll run a scan on the megaship systems. We'll need the megazord ready when we need it." "You got it," the others exclaimed and went about their tasks. Sunday. 7 a.m. Mustafa, Japan. The sun was already starting to rise as Connor continued his early morning jog, a part of his training as a ranger. Unlike the previous day, he didn't take Cody with him as the puppy was soundly sleeping on his bed and didn't move an inch. Music played through his headphones as he jogged past the train station, the lyrics being of one of his favorite songs. "Only the strongest will survive. Lead me to heaven when we die. I am the shadow on the wall. I'll be the one to save us all. Save us all." One of the best songs ever. "Thank you, Breaking Benjamin," he praised as he came to a stop to catch his breath, just as the 7 AM train arrived at the station. To his surprise, Jason walked down the steps of the station, dressed in his track suit with a couple of water bottles in his hands, one of which he tossed to Connor. "Heh, didn't think I'd see you so soon after yesterday," he said, catching the water bottle while also pausing his music. "Well, you and I do have the same idea when it comes to training," Jason admitted, taking a sip of his water before sitting down on the nearby bench. "It's important to keep your body in shape, especially for us rangers. After all, drinking soda after a run is not healthy, let alone one every day." "Amen to that." Connor agreed. "So, I got to ask. Do you know if the Tiger Zord was rebuilt? Maybe even the Turbo and Rescue Zords? The Zeo Zords? The Shogun and Ninja Zords? I know for a fact that the Shogun, Ninja, and Zeo Zords are still around, but I'm not so sure about the other ones." Jason answered. "Why do you ask?" "That creature we fought at the USJ, that Nomu. I have a feeling that we'll be facing more of them in the future." Connor answered, watching several early morning commuters arriving at the station or disembarking from the trains. "We don't know who the leader of the League of Villains is or when they'll strike again. What we do know, is that Noma thing was once a human being turned into that monster, and it had multiple quirks, meaning it was probably created by someone who knows a thing about quirks." "But what does that have to do with your question about the Zords?" Jason asked. "I'm asking about them because I have a feeling that we'll be needing the firepower in the future. Though, if the Turbo and Rescue Zords are still in pieces, we'll need to get them rebuilt. Power Loader and the support course could do it, but Melissa did mention that there was one over-enthusiastic student who might go overboard on the rebuilding." Connor answered. "Who's the student?" Jason asked, unaware that in the shadows someone's eyes were twinkling like stars. "Hey there, Red Ranger," came the voice of said overenthusiastic student, MHA, a 16-year-old girl with salmon pink, shoulder-length hair, greenish-yellow hair, a pair of steampunk-like goggles on her head, wearing a black tank top, workshop overalls tied around her waist and white shoes. "I hope you're interested in some of my babies to help you out in battle. I guarantee that they'll blow away the baddies." "That would be the student I'm talking about," Connor answered with a sweat drop. "Jason Oliver, meet MHA of Support Course 1H. The student I was talking about. She's a very interesting person, who happens to have a lot of her gadgets explode. Failure is the mother of invention." Thomas Edison said something along those lines. May said, getting in close to Connor's face. "So, did your sister mention those gadgets I told her about? That new and improved rescue blaster has more power than the standard issue one. She also said it was the size of an M16. A rifle that can't even fit in my holster." Connor answered, feeling a bit uncomfortable with Hatsam's close proximity to him. "Look, Hatsam, could you maybe? You need a better blaster and there's no better choice than the improved one," Hatsam exclaimed, before she then noticed Jason. "Wait. You're with the Green Ranger. That's her take on this?" Jason asked, surprised. "She's a very assertive girl when it comes to talking about her inventions." Connor deadpanned. "Though most of them just explode, even if they are prototypes. I bet you two are talking about which of my babies would be best suited for your style of combat," May exclaimed, startling the two of them. "I may not be a fighter like the rest of you, but I can easily make up for it by making the best inventions for future heroes. And if I can help out the Power Rangers, then that's even better," she proclaimed, then sprinted away. "I've got work to do, so I'll see you both later. That girl scares me sometimes," Connor said with a sweet drop before he turned back to Jason. "But she isn't wrong. Principal Nizu told me when he offered us a place at UA that Power Loader, the hero that manages the support course, would be honored if he'd assist us in the restoration, rebuilding, and construction of newer Zords. Now that you mention it, I heard that someone was working on rebuilding a few Zords." Jason remembered. Just then, Connor's morpher beeped, and the young Red Ranger brought it up. "Go for Connor," he said. "Hope you're finished with your run, because we got some work to do," TJ said over the communicator. "We just got a call from one of Mondo's friends, a Professor Ikechi Kubota, the current head of Nasada. Something happened during the night at one of the Nasta bases and he wants us there. Said it was important to the Power Rangers mission. We're already on our way. Same goes for Ryukyu and your girlfriend." "Okay, first off, Hato is not my girlfriend, and second, I'll catch the next train to Ibaraki and meet you at the station," Connor responded, lowering his hand before he turned to Jason. "I don't suppose you'd be joining us on this one?" he asked. "Wish I could, but I got something I need to check out," Jason answered. "But if you guys need me, just contact me." "Will do." Connor nodded and headed up the stairs to the platform and boarded the train bound Ibaraki. Angel Grove Park, California, United States of America. Saturday. 2 p.m. Though it was the weekend and it had been several months since the attack on Island and Mariner Bay, Selwyn Johnson, TJ's cousin, found it incredibly hard to fall back asleep. He had spent the last several days studying for an important test at Angel Grove High School, and while he was grateful that the test was finished, something was bothering him, so he felt like taking a run. Dressed in a blue shirt, black sweatpants and running sneakers, he made his way to the park, trying to wrap his head around what was bothering him. The 17-year-old black-haired boy with red and blue streaks, the brown-eyed dark-skinned boy, felt something in his pocket. Pulling it out, he was amazed that he had somehow taken his great-grandfather's astromorpher. "Why did I take this thing with me?" he asked himself. "So, you felt something bothering you as well, Selwyn?" Came the voice of Junie Vierut, another student from Angel Grove High School. He was 16 years old, with fair skin, black hair with green streaks and had brown eyes, wearing sweatshirt and sweatpants along with a pair of running sneakers. Guess the situation at UA is bugging both of us, even though we don't have quirks. He surmised. Yeah, well at least we don't have to worry about another big test anytime soon. Came another voice, this one being female. Both turned around to see that Yang-chan, their 15-year-old friend with black hair with platinum blonde streaks and green eyes, wearing a pink sweatshirt and blue jeans. Guess when it comes to being the descendants of the Power Rangers, we get a sixth sense. But I'm glad I wasn't the only one who brought this with them, she finished, holding up her own astromorpher, as did Junie. Like Selwyn, Junie and Young were descendants of Power Rangers, more specifically, Cassie-chan, Carlos Villarut, and T.J. Johnson, the pink, red and green Turbo Rangers as well as the blue, black and pink Space Rangers, but Young had the yellow astromorpher. It feels weird that we're holding these morphers, yet we haven't found a need to use them. Guess it's a good thing when we got heroes like All Might and Stars and Stripes protecting us. She chuckled. Heroes like them won't be enough. Came an unfamiliar voice from behind one of the trees. The tree teens turned around and were surprised to see that Chris and his sister walking out into the moonlight. You've seen what the new Lightspeed Rangers are up against, and it's not just demons. Who are you guys? Selwyn demanded, ready to fight if the situation called for it. We're not enemies. My name is Chris, and this is my sister Stacy and we're just like you. Chris began, holding up his hand and revealed the astromorpher on his wrist. We're Power Rangers and we need your help. Our help? Young asked, confused. I'm sorry, but I think you've got the wrong idea. We're not Power Rangers. But you are descendants of Power Rangers. Stacy pointed out. And that means you have a duty to protect the world and the universe as a whole. Surely you heard those morphers beep a few days ago, didn't you? You mean after that rumor that UA's security was breached? Junie asked with a raised eyebrow. That's right. Chris answered. Though we haven't met them, I'm certain that the Lightspeed Rangers are going to be facing more than just demons. We saw the reports about the USJ attack when the megaship reached Earth just earlier today and it looks like they're facing more the likes of Ecliptor and other enemies. They need all the help they can get and you three are the meant to take up the mantle of Space Rangers, just like your ancestors. He then held out his hand to Selwyn. We need you, but if you refuse, we'll respect your choice. Selwyn thought for a moment and looked at Chris. When his cousin told him that he was new Blue Lightspeed Ranger, he had a feeling that he was going to be walking down a similar path. As long as he could remember, despite being classified as one of the 20% of the human race that didn't have a quirk, he still wanted to become a hero and found inspiration reading the stories about both ordinary heroes and the Power Rangers and now, he had the chance. Junie and Young felt the same way, always being told that they could never be heroes without quirks by those who had quirks, claiming that they could never become heroes without a quirk, but now they had a chance to prove those who told them they couldn't, but it was more about protecting the world. So, what do we have to do? Junie asked. Chris just smiled before he pressed a button on his morpher and contacted Deku who teleported them all to the megaship. Kasumigaura Air Base. Chuchiura. Ibaraki Prefecture, Japan. 9:30 a.m. Established in 1921 after the end of the First World War, Kasumigaura Air Base once served the base for the airships constructed by the Japanese Navy before they were shut down in 1932. After World War II, the airbase fell into the hands of the Americans, where it was then given to the Japanese Self-Defense Force who used it as a training base for helicopter pilots and mechanics. When Quirks emerged, the airbase was shut down and then handed over to NASDA, a space program that called for the help of the Space Rangers at various points during their battle against Dark Spectre, later helping form the Galactic Space Alliance, or GSA with the help of their allies from Elter, Aquitar, KO-35 and Triforia. Though contact with their allies and the interest in space exploration had faded with the emergence of Quirks, NASADA continued to focus its efforts on both assisting the pro-heroes of Earth and those who still had an interest in space exploration. Black smoke rose into the sky as several buildings and hangar bays were on fire while silver guardians and medical personnel tended to the wounded and injured while Professor Eikichi Kubota, the head of Nasada, surveyed the damage. Like Mondo and David, he believed that there would come a time when the Power Rangers would be needed when a threat that heroes like All Might couldn't handle. At 40 years old with black hair and a bit of a bald spot on the middle of his head, wearing a brown suit with a white undershirt, and glasses, the professor was still at a lose for words. Late last night, someone or something attacked the base, causing massive damage to the facilities and injuring several scientists. Security personnel were quick to return fire on the attackers, who at first were thought to be villains or even terrorists, but were surprised that the attackers were quantrons, fire lizards and chillers who kept the security busy while someone else broke into one of the hangars where they kept certain technology that was taken when Dark Spectre attacked Earth, and took what they had locked away, only to come back around and fired at the base. I don't get it, what would Olympus want with some alien tech when he has a horde of demons at his command, along with all those other forces? Ryukyu asked the professor who he called for personally. Is there something you're not telling us, Professor? It is as I told you, Lady Ryukyu. All we've been doing at this base is researching the technology left behind by Dark Spectre's forces when they attacked and assist heroes like yourself in your efforts against those who misuse their quirks. Eikichi answered. Well, it looks like they took something. Nijire spoke as she hovered overhead before touching down. I don't see anything that looks like it was left behind, but it almost looks like this place was strafed with machine guns or something. That's crazy. Either way, I'll explain everything to the Rangers when they arrive. Speaking of which, is it true that the Red Ranger is an exceptionally skilled pilot? The professor asked. Connor's only piloted his rescue Zord, I don't know about anything airborne or like a plane. But he's always told me that he's more than willing to pilot another Zord. Nijire answered, smiling as she talked about the boy who had caught her eye. It was at that moment, he arrived. He was a tall, sturdily built man with a muscular physique, with short crimson hair which he wore spiked up around his head, with sharp turquoise eyes. Dressed in a tight, navy turquoise bodysuit with flames streaming across his chest, torso, arms and his shoulder, with a makeshift mask of flames around his eyes, tall boots that seemed to be made out of fire or were left alight, with only their soles and laces visible around the flames and sporting white bracers on his lower arms, styled in cage pattern with a blue belt and pouch on both sides. He was none other than the flame hero, Endeavor. Wow, I didn't think that Endeavor would show up. Nijire said with a gasp. I don't remember asking for his assistance. The professor noted. So, what was stolen, Professor? Endeavor demanded. I heard from one of my sidekicks that this research base was attacked by villains and a great number of people were injured. Are you building a weapon that would attract the attention of villains? Never. Nasada doesn't build weapons and never will. We focus on space exploration and building support items for heroes like you, the professor said defensively. Then tell me everything you know about the villains who attacked this place. Endeavor asked again. They were monsters, not villains, Enji. Ryukyu answered. They were quantrons, lava lizards and chillers, monsters that the Power Rangers fought years before Quirks existed. So what? You're waiting for a bunch of children to show up? Endeavor questioned with a scoff. Actually, Connor and his friends are already here. Nijire said proudly. This earned a scowl from Endeavor, but before he could say anything, Connor and the other Rangers walked over. Hey, there you guys are. Sorry we're late. But it's not like we can go over the speed limit. Connor said, rubbing the back of his head nervously. Then you and the others can go home now. Endeavor said bluntly. This is no place for children, considering those villains might return. Wow, rude much. Lena quipped, earning a glare from the flame hero. For your information, Mr. Number 2 Hero, we were asked here by the professor himself. I can handle the situation better than the 5 of you, considering you don't have quirks and have to rely on your physical abilities. Endeavor countered. I don't care if the professor called for you, leave now. You'll only get in my way. Endeavor, sir. Anthony spoke up. If you say you can handle things, then we'll leave as you asked. But let me ask you this, if you have to face a monster that's grown to the size of a building, how are you going to take it down before it squashes you like a grape? Endeavor didn't have an answer and just scoffed before he walked towards one of the buildings. Yeah, he's going to be a problem. Melissa sighed. Well, aside from what Endeavor said. Professor Aikachi said, clearing his throat. I'm grateful that you've answered my call, I was worried. He then turned to Melissa and Connor. It's good to see you two again, I take it you both are doing well in your studies? Oh, we're doing fine, Professor. Connor answered. By the way, thanks again for getting me interested in model building. I've found it to be very enjoyable, especially the transformable mecha ones you recommend to me. You build models? Ryukyu asked with a raised eyebrow. Well, yeah. Connor answered with a nervous look. What did you think I just spent my free time playing VR games? Not at all. Forgive me if I seem to imply that, I just found it surprising that you build models in your spare time. Ryukyu clarified. Hobbies aside, perhaps we cannot get underway with the investigation. Yes. Aikachi replied and led them to the main building that was undergoing repairs from the attack. So, you know the professor? Who's next? Lord Zed? Rancic? Lothier? Nijire asked. Well, we've only met him a few times when he visited Island a few times during Expo. He's always stayed with me, Melissa, and Dad when he comes for the Expo. Connor answered. Wow, you know a lot of people. Kind of makes me jealous. Nijire said with a pout, making Connor laugh. I'm sorry, but I don't think you'd be the jealous type, he answered, before they arrived in the control room, where the professor punched in a few commands on a keyboard and brought up the diagram of a sleek and silver fighter craft that was very familiar. Are those velocifighters? They are. Aikachi answered. After Dark Spectre's united alliance of evil was defeated by the Space Rangers, thousands of velocifighters crashed across the globe when their pilots turned to dust. Most of the crashed fighters were completely destroyed while others weren't badly damaged and were salvaged for study by General Norquist, in hopes of preparing Earth's defenses in the event of another invasion, which happened years later by the Trobian Empire. Aren't they the same fighters that overwhelmed the Mega Winger? TJ inquired. Yes. Despite their limited weaponry and flimsy frame, they are more dangerous in sheer numbers. When Dark Spectre launched his attack on the galaxy, thousands of velocifighters attacked air bases around the world to prevent pilots from taking off and fighting back. Of course, that didn't stop a handful of pilots across the globe from taking the fight for the planet in whatever fighters they could scramble, like the F-16. The professor answered. They're like TIE fighters. No shields, no life support, limited weapons, fast speeds. It's no wonder they overwhelmed the Mega Winger. Nijire pointed out. True. But though Nasada found only wrecked fighters, there was little we could do to improve the Earth's defenses, and with the arrival of Quirks, most governments saw little use for an improved air force when we have pro-heroes who can defend us. The professor continued, noticing Endeavor who had just entered the command room. But these villains attacked this base for a reason. Is there something you're not telling us, Professor? Endeavor demanded. I am getting to that. 40 years ago, several undamaged velocifighters were found at the base of Mt. Fuji, hidden in a cave and fully intact. Our theory is that the pilots of these fighters were turned to dust when the massive wave of pure energy, the fighters were undergoing repair. Aikachi responded. At first, examined their technology in hopes of developing a new type of fighter craft for those without quirks or have an effective ranged quirk, like Snipe's homing quirk, in an effort to protect the Earth. But when the demons returned, I proposed an idea to Nasada, who approved my proposal, and work began on these machines. Another type of command by the professor, and the monitor changed from the diagram of the alien fighters to 5 unusual-looking fighter aircraft, each of which bore the insignia of the Lightspeed Rangers. These aircraft are meant to be your new zords, rangers. They are capable of aerial combat and like the Turbo Rangers rescue zords, each of a sort of high stance mode so they can deal with monsters who've grown. Mondo approved my idea and has been assisting me in their construction, but they are not yet ready for deployment. Aikichi said. Are you telling me that these zords are the reason the villains attacked this base? Because you're building new machines for these children? Endeavor inquired with his flames starting to burn hotter and hotter. No. The zords are hidden and all data regarding their construction is heavily encrypted. What the monsters stole were the fighters themselves and they deleted all the data we acquired from our technical analysis throughout the years. The professor clarified, then typed in another set of commands, and brought up security footage from one of the hangars where a Quantran climbed into the cockpit of the fighter and took off. They were after the fighters, no doubt planning on building up their arsenal. So, it's because of the Rangers, that this base was attacked. Endeavor said with a scowl. Perhaps if they hadn't shown up, none of this would happen. Do you make a habit of blaming others for things they can't control, hothead? TJ scolded. We had nothing to do with this. Even if we weren't here, those fighters would still have been stolen. Now I see why Shoto hates your guts. Oh, and by the way, maybe you didn't notice the tank in the background. Tank, everyone asked at once, as TJ moved towards the console and punched in a few commands, rewinding the security footage to just before the captured alien fighter left the hangar, zoomed in on a section of the footage and enhanced it, revealing an anti-aircraft tank of unknown origin rolling in the distance and firing its weapons at the buildings. I bet your quirk wouldn't have allowed you to see that. TJ said with a smirk. Though he didn't want to admit it, Endeavor was impressed that TJ was able to enhance the security footage and saw the tank, but the attitude of the Blue Ranger was annoying. Well, that makes things clearer. Professor, why didn't you tell us you had a tank on base? He questioned the professor. We don't have a tank. We're a research facility, not a military installation. The professor said in defense. That tank looks familiar. Anthony observed. I feel like I've seen that color scheme somewhere before. Looks almost like Ecliptor combined a part of his own body with some robot. Hey, I think I've seen that somewhere before. I think it's... Lena started to say before the building began to shake, as if something hit it. That's not good. Outside. Now. Connor shouted and rushed out of the command room with the other rangers, Nijire and Ryukyu following him, much to Endeavor's annoyance. Astro Megaship. Earth orbit. The vital systems are controlled by Deku. She's got eyes and ears all over the ship, speaks 3,000 languages and is certified in both medical, sociological and other fields. Chris explained to Junie, Yang, and Selwyn as he guided them through the megaship's halls. We also have 2 hangar bays for the Galaxy Rangers jet jammers and the megatank. Feels like we're walking inside the Millennium Falcon or the Ebon Hawk from Star Wars. Junie said in amazement, now wearing an attire similar Chris, only with a black shirt underneath his jacket. Yang wore a pink shirt underneath her jacket while Selwyn wore blue shirt underneath his jacket. Got to say, it's one impressive ship. It might be the megaship 2 Malawian Kwachas, but it still has all the same features as the original, including the Megazord mode and ability to combine with the newly rebuilt Delta Megazord. Stacy added. Oh, and before we forget, the Mega Voyager and Mega Winger have also been rebuilt. Think they'll stand up against demons? Yang asked. They'll stand up to the demons, I guarantee it. Chris answered. Hey. You guys might want to come up to the bridge. There's something you might want to see. Emily's voice exclaimed over the loudspeaker. The new Space Rangers were quick to rush to the bridge, where Emily had the monitor viewing the Nasada base where an unknown tank was attacking the base with Quantrans fighting the security guards. Looks like someone's attacking our new allies. Scans of the tank confirm it to be the resurrected Tankenstein. Deku reported. Seriously. That guy's still alive and kicking. Kane groaned. And it looks like he's packing a new set of firepower. It will take a lot of firepower to bring him down. The Lightspeed Rangers are going to need some help. Let's go. Chris said and dashed towards the recreation room and launched tubes, then slid down the tubes as 6 lights shot from the megaship, flying towards Earth on their galaxy gliders while Jack and Emily stayed behind on the megaship. Earth. Explosions erupted around the base as the unknown tank continued to fire its weapons at the buildings while Quantrons attacked the security guards who were assisting the scientists running for cover as the Rangers, Nijire, Ryukyu, and Endeavor rushed out of the main building. That thing has got some serious firepower. What, is it like an AT-AT or Belkin tank? Connor asked. Then stand back if you don't want to get hurt. Endeavor said, pulling back his fist as the temperature of his flames increased before he launched himself towards the tank. Flash fire fist, he shouted and hit the tank with a fiery punch, but to his surprise, his punch didn't even do any damage. That's impossible. He gasped. That tickled, the tank exclaimed before it swung its massive turret around and knocked Endeavor down before it transformed into its true form, Tankenstein. Guess who's back and better than ever, the monster exclaimed, repositioning his missile launchers into firing position, and fired at the Rangers and heroes. Demolisher? Connor guessed. No. I'm Tankenstein. Your worst nightmare. Tankenstein growled as appearing by his side were Molter, Flurious, Ecliptor, and Darkonda. Hello Rangers, been well? Darkonda asked menacingly. I thought you would have been too scared to fight after what happened at the USJ. Pity you all weren't destroyed. What are you after, Darkonda? Connor demanded. Oh, nothing much, just your destruction. Darkonda answered, firing red beams from his hands directly at Nijire, only for Connor to step in and take the brunt of the blast. Well, looks like someone likes to rescue damsels in distress. I'm not damsel, ugly. Nijire exclaimed. Yeah. She can kick your butt 3 weeks to Sunday. Connor added, then turned to the other Rangers. Let's do it. Right. Lightspeed rescue, they all shouted and morphed into their Ranger forms. You're no overdrive Rangers. Flurious noted, readying his staff for battle. But you're still our enemies. Molter added, twirling around his own swords as he and his brother summoned their minions, the lava lizards and chillers. We're a lot tougher than you think. TJ countered, ready for battle. Attack. Ecliptor ordered as the horde of foot soldiers charged towards the Lightspeed Rangers and their allies, just as Endeavor got back to his feet, only to be surrounded by several dozen Quantrons, all of whom were ready to strike him down. One Quantron swung its blade at Endeavor, who blocked it with his bracer before he delivered a fiery fist to the creature's face, knocking it back several feet. No one knocks me down and gets away with it, he growled, unleashing a series of fiery fists as several Quantrons continued to attack Endeavor. I will surpass All Might. And I'll prove that we don't need the Power Rangers to protect us. He thought to himself. Ryukyu kicked a Quantron in the chest, pushing it away before leaping into the air and kicked another in the chest. A blast of lighting from Molter knocked her back, but the woman quickly used her quirk and changed into her dragon form and brought one of her massive claws down on Molter, only for the lava monster to blow it with his twin swords, pushing the dragon hero back. You would make an excellent ally. Molter praised, impressed with Ryukyu's abilities. I'm a hero, not a villain for hire. Ryukyu snarled and swung her tail around at the monster, knocking him back into one of the wrecked hangars. Nerger launched several shockwaves towards a few Quantrons, hitting them in the chest, but just as she knocked them down, Flurious used his staff to send an ice beam towards her. Hey! It's cold enough already without you trying to make it more to your liking. Can't you just use that staff like a weapon? She questioned. An excellent idea, young lady. Flurious said, swinging his staff at Nijire after infusing it with icy energy, which would have knocked her down had it been for Connor who blocked the staff with his baton. Saving the girl? That's a noble thing to do, for a foolish ranger. No one hurts my friends. Connor snarled and swung his baton at Flurious, who blocked the attack only to be hit by a sidekick to the ribs, dazing the ice creature long enough for Nijire to leap in with a kick of her own, knocking Furious back. Especially when my friend can kick your butt. He added with a quip, followed by a blast from his blaster. Melissa and Lena parried Darkonda's sword, then tried to attack him, but the alien bounty hunter was quick to move around the two rangers and kick them away before firing energy bolts at the two of them the moment they turned around. Ha! You two are just a couple of weaklings. You shouldn't even be rangers, not unless you have quirks worth stealing. He laughed, then dashed towards the two rangers, and slashed at their chests, knocking them down. TJ and Anthony weren't having any luck against Ecliptor. Anthony's baton was blocked by Ecliptor's sword, who then kicked Anthony away before grabbing TJ by the neck and then threw him away. Raising his right hand to his face, he fired a pair of energy beams from his eyes towards both rangers and sent them flying. I grow tired of this. Tankenstein. Fire, he growled. Target locked on. Fire. Tankenstein shouted and fired all of his weapons at the rangers and heroes, knocking them to the ground, while also taking out a few chillers and lava lizards. It's a strike. And right on the head pin, he said with a cackle. Nearby an unseen Korag watched the fight and shook his head with disappointment. Were these rangers truly as weak when he first fought them? He watched in delight as Connor got back to his feet. As expected, the Red Ranger doesn't give up as easily. He is truly a worthy opponent, more than I can say for Endeavor. Korag mused as he continued to watch the battle. Still looking for more? Don't you get it, Rangers? I'm the strongest monster you've ever faced. It's over for you. Tankenstein proclaimed. I don't care if there's 500 of you. I'll never give up. I'll keep fighting until my last breath, and I will find a way for justice to prevail. Connor exclaimed, clenching his fist. The 5 of us are more than enough to take you down. Tankenstein and his comrades slowly moved towards the down rangers while Ryukyu, Nijire, and even Endeavor were impressed by his courage, but against a monster like Tankenstein, he would only get destroyed. It was then, a voice rang out. How about 11 of us? Everyone turned to one of the hangars where on the roof, Chris, Stacy, Yang, Junie, Selwyn, and Kane stood, ready for battle. Who are they? Connor asked. I don't know, but I think they're on our side. Melissa said as she and the other rangers stood by Connor's side. Ready, guys? Chris asked, looking at the other rangers who nodded, then each of them pushed their right hands out then pulled them back. Let's rock it. Flipping open their astromorphers, the 5 rangers inputted the code 335 and hit enter while Kane typed in the code MHA on his digimorpher. Each of the 6 rangers spun around, with their power levels displayed as they morphed into their ranger suits. Chris's suit was red, Stacy's was yellow, Junie's was black, Selwyn's was blue, Yang's was pink, and Kane's was silver. Each of them had white gloves and boots with white stripes by the shoulders, or gold in the case of Kane's suit with 5 colored squares on their chests, except for Kane's who had 6 black squares on his chest. Chris, Stacy, Yang, Selwyn, and Junie each had a blaster holstered on their side, and all 6 of them had a sort of symbol on their helmet. Chris's was a PDA, Stacy's a camera, Selwyn's a projector, Junie's a satellite, Yang's a cell phone, and Kane's a microchip. Their helmets were in their respective colors, with 2 white lines above and below their visors which were black. The 6 new Space Rangers leapt off the roof and landed on the ground right beside the Lightspeed Rangers. Thought. You could use a little help. Chris said. More Rangers. Fluria spat in anger. What does it matter? I'll crush them all. Tankenstein proclaimed and charged towards the 11 Rangers while the others retreated, except for Darkonda who kept watch. Let's do it, guys. Chris shouted and drew their weapons, each of which materialized in their respective colors. Spiral Saber. Lunar Lance. Junie shouted. Star Slinger. Stacy shouted. Satellite Stunner. Yang shouted. Astro Axe. Selwyn shouted. Super Silverizer. Kane shouted. Their weapons were a drill-shaped sword, a lance with a crescent-shaped moon, slingshot, axe, satellite dish and a blaster-slash-sword hybrid-type weapon. The 6 Space Rangers charged towards the enemy, backed by the Lightspeed Rangers and Nijire, while Endeavor and Ryukyu stood back and watched, though Endeavor was annoyed that more Rangers had now arrived. Chris swung the spiral saber and cut down a chiller, then brought his saber behind him to counter an underhanded attack from a lava lizard scimitar, which he then kicked away with strong back kick to the lizard's stomach. Glancing in another direction, he spotted several Quantrons duking it out with Connor, who was struggling to keep his defenses up after the beating he took from the earlier battle. Knocked down after a slash to chest from a Quantron's weapon, Connor watched as Chris cut down the Quantrons with his saber with little effort. Earth Rangers are strong, but don't think you can do everything on your own, Chris told his fellow Red Ranger, who got back to his feet and rejoined the fight. Satellite stunner in hand, Yang fired several blasts at the foot soldiers while Melissa swung her baton and cut down several more enemy soldiers. Nice shooting, Melissa praised, ducking down just in time to avoid a lava lizard scimitar. Lena and Stacy opened up with blasts from their blaster and star slinger, gutting down a couple of Quantrons, only to nearly be taken out by a blast from Tankenstein's weapons, but the 2 Yellow Rangers leapt out of the way and fired a few more shots at the soldiers, taking out a few more enemies. Junie raised his lance, catching a few Q-blades with his weapon before Anthony leapt over his shoulder and fired his blaster, downing the Quantrons before he turned to the lava lizards, who leapt into the air with their scimitars ready to cut him down, only for Anthony to cut them down with his baton, as did Junie, who followed the Green Ranger's lead. Selwyn and TJ stood back to back, baton and axe in hand, as the two were surrounded by chillers with their pickaxes at the ready. One of the ice creatures swung its pickaxe at TJ, who raised his baton to block the attack, but another chiller was able to launch several explosive ice balls from its mouth, stunning TJ for a brief second, but his cousin was another story as he swung his axe at the chillers that attacked his cousin and cut them down. A blast from Nijire's quirk slammed into Tankenstein, but did little damage to the monster, only for it to be revealed as a ruse when Kane rushed towards the tank monster, slashing at the monster with his silverizer and doing a good deal of damage to the monster, even scoring a lucky hit on the circuits that powered the monster's regeneration systems. You think you can take me down on your own, Ranger? I'm more powerful than anything you've ever faced. Tankenstein roared, drawing his sword and swung it down at Kane, only for Endeavor to block it with his gauntlet, having decided he was done standing on the sidelines. Then why don't you try facing me? Jet burn! Endeavor roared, concentrating his flames into a white-hot point on his fist, then punched, sending a fiery beam towards the tank monster, this time causing some damage. I'll be your opponent. Stand down, Endeavor, we'll take it from here. Chris shouted as he and the other Rangers stood in front of the Flame Hero, weapons in hand. Spiral Saber. Booster mode, he shouted, attaching his Astro Blaster to his Spiral Saber, creating a powerful blaster. Let's not let Chris have all the fun. Quadrablaster power. Junie shouted as he held a combined rifle with his lance as the stock, Selwyn's axe as the foregrip, Stacy's Star Slinger as the trigger and Yang's Satellite Stunner as the barrel. Rescue Bird. Connor shouted as the rescue bird launched from the rescue bay and landed in the hands of the Rangers in unilaser form. Let me take the first swing at this guy. Kane shouted and charged towards Tankenstein, his weapon in its blade mode, then kicked off Tankenstein's chest before slashing the monster across the chest with his blade infused with blue energy. Fire! The Space Rangers shouted and launched Golden Ball of Energy towards Tankenstein, followed by the Calamity Breaker from the rescue bird, all of which combined together and slammed into Tankenstein, destroying the supposed invincible monster. That was impressive, but this monster's not done yet. Darkonda shouted and fired a beam from his left hand that made the tank monster grow in size and in his original form. So, what now, Rangers? Endeavor asked as the massive monster stomped his feet on the ground and made the earth shake. We go big. TJ answered, then called for the rail rescues. Screeching to a halt, The rail rescues opened up, allowing the rescue zords to launch, which the rangers quickly combined into megazord mode, then charged towards Tankenstein. Both the monster and megazord were soon locked in a grapple, but Tankenstein soon broke the grapple and delivered a couple of chops to the lightspeed megazord's chest, knocking it back down the runway. "Why don't you just give up, Rangers? I'm the last monster you'll ever face," Tankenstein roared, launching a pair of tentacles at the lightspeed megazord, binding it before infusing the tentacles with green electricity that caused a great deal of damage to the megazord. Sparks erupted from within the megazord, shaking it before the megazord fell to the ground. "And I thought he was tough in his Demolisher knockoff form," Anthony spat. "Let's see if he can take this," TJ shouted, gripping the controls and pulled the trigger, raising the megazord's bound arms slightly and fired its wrist lasers, doing a little damage to Tankenstein, allowing the rangers to break the bindings hold their megazord. "That tickled." Tankenstein chuckled, drawing his sword and fired a beam from it, scoring another hit on the lightspeed megazord. "But I bet that hurt. This guy's just way too strong," Lena called out. "We need more power," Melissa added. "I don't think the jet blaster will be enough. This guy's got some tough armor," Connor pointed out as Tankenstein started to charge towards them with his sword in hand, only for series of blasts to stop him in his tracks. The source of the blasts was a white spaceship with traces of black, red, and orange, along with a set of wheels underneath it, presumably for landing and takeoff. Behind it were 5 more space vehicles. One was like an astronaut suit with a pair of missile launchers on its shoulders, another was a space shuttle with traces of black on its wings. The third was a blue rocket which the astronaut vehicle was using like a surfboard, the fourth was a yellow UFO, and the fifth was a pink lunar rover. "Looks like someone called in the cavalry." Leaping off the rocket, the astronaut vehicle fired its rocket launchers at Tankenstein, followed by a barrage of lasers from the shuttle, UFO, and rover, while the rocket flew past Tankenstein and grazed his side. "All right, Rangers, let's bring them together," Chris shouted from the cockpit of the astronaut Zord. "We need Mega Voyager power, now," all 5 Space Rangers shouted and pulled a lever in their cockpits. First, Mega V3 split into 3 separate pieces, with the rocket moving away while the end half split in half, while Mega V5 retracted its wheels and lasers before it too split in half. A head came out of Mega V2 while Mega V4 split in half, forming a body and arms, while the rocket part of Mega V3 flew up behind it, then stopped as they locked in place, as the parts of Mega V3 attached to Mega V5. The rocket part of Mega V3 then flew away as the arms moved into position and the head that detached from Mega V2 landed on top of Mega V4. Finally, Mega V1 retracted its limbs and formed the torso before it combined with the rest of the Mega vehicles, to form the Mega Voyager. The spaceship's flaps then folded up slightly, the bottom moving down to form the arms while the top half moved up to form the legs, while its head was the same color as its body, but with a black visor as it skidded to a halt with its fists raised. Mega Voyager 2 Malawian Kwachas. Online. Chris, Stacy, Junie, Selwyn, and Yang shouted from within the new Megazord's cockpit. Mega Winger 2 Malawian Kwachas. Online. Kane shouted from the cockpit of his own Zord. "Wow! Those are so cool." Nijire beamed, looking at the massive Megazords that had just arrived. "Tank Boy's got nothing on the Rangers now." "Kick his butt, guy," she cheered, while Ryukyu smiled at Nijire's support for the Rangers, but Endeavor just scowled. "Time for a repeat of history." Tankenstein roared, pointing his sword at the Mega Voyager, and fired a beam from his sword directly at the Mega Voyager, but his attack didn't phase the rebuilt Megazord. "This isn't the Mega Voyager you fought before, Tank Face," Chris shouted, gripping the controls, and launched the Mega Voyager forward. Mega Kick. A powerful kick from the Mega Voyager nailed Tankenstein in the chest, followed by a strong punch from the Mega Winger. A double punch from both Megazords came next, but Tankenstein countered by using the jet boosters on his back to leap over the 2 Zords and landed behind them, ready to skewer both Zords through the back with his sword, only to be grabbed by the latter arms of the lightspeed Megazord and tossed away. Those heaps of junk sure pack a punch. But I'm stronger than all three of you combined, the monster roared. Face it, Rangers. I know all your moves. Well, here's a move you didn't see coming. Activating Voyager Saber. Junie called out. Mega Winger Saber. Activate. Kane shouted. Compartments in the legs of both the Mega Voyager and Mega Winger opened up and both Zords pulled out a hilt and activated them, igniting an emerald, green and violet beams from the hilts. Try this on for size. Stacy shouted as the Mega Voyager and Mega Winger charged towards Tankenstein with their new weapons ignited and ready. Undaunted, Tankenstein swung his own sword at the two Zords, but the Mega Winger blocked the attack with its own sword, allowing the Mega Voyager to slash Tankenstein across the chest with its own saber. Hey! Don't forget about us! Connor shouted as the Lightspeed Megazord charged in, with its own saber in hand and swung its blade down on Tankenstein's chest, who attempted to block the strike, but failed and lost his sword in hand in the process. Ha! Nice try, Rangers. But I can just grow my... Tankenstein started to boast before he realized that his hand wasn't growing back. What's going on? Why can't I grow my hand back? He roared. I was able to hit your regenerative circuits when you were still human-sized. Kane shouted, swinging his Megazord saber at Tankenstein again, hitting the monster hard. Let's finish this guy. Mega V3 missile, activate. Chris shouted as said missile descended from the sky and into the Mega Voyager's hand. Wing Blaster. Online. Kane shouted, pulling the wings which also doubled as a large cannon and aimed it at the monster. Activating Megazord Saber. Lena called out as saber of their Megazord powered up. Oh. Tankenstein MMM. Mega V3 missile, fire. Chris shouted, moving one of the controls around, left, up, down, right, and pulled the trigger, launching the missile towards the monster. Wing Blaster. Fire. Kane shouted and pulled the trigger of his controls, firing his Zord's blaster. The missile and blaster's projectiles slammed into the monster, causing him to stagger before the Lightspeed Megazord finished it off with the victory prominence. How can this be? I'm invincible. Tankenstein yelled before he fell backwards and exploded. Now that's what I'm talking about. Connor shouted with excitement before a very familiar and angry voice filled his communicator. Is this all just one big game to you? Playing hero and not caring about the consequences of your actions? Endeavor shouted. People could have been killed and this base is wrecked because of you. You were only lucky to survive this time. Leave the hero work to the pros and focus on your schoolwork. I'll be reporting this to the Hero Safety Commission, the Flame Hero promised before he used his quirk and flew away. Wow, what an butt. Kane said aloud. After the Zords had returned to their hangars, Connor and Chris stood face to face with each other. So, 3 of you guys are Rangers from space and the other 3 are from Earth and there are 2 more Rangers on board the megaship? Connor repeated after Chris explained the situation. There were supposed to be 12 of us, but the other Galaxy Rangers are still on Miranoi, so they won't be joining us for a while now. Chris answered. We were surprised when we got Alpha's message, but our parents and their parents before them always knew that this day would come when we were needed back on Earth. So, here we are and now that we're here, you guys have got some extra backup. That now makes 12 Rangers, if you count Jason and the MSTR Morpher. Connor said. Well, thanks for the help and with you guys on our side, Olympus is going to be in for a bigger fight than he thought. Just try and not do anything that will get Endeavor pissed off. Yeah, we won't. Chris answered, but then looked back to the wrecked base. So, what were they after? Firepower. Connor said with worry, noticing out of the corner of his eye Korag teleporting away. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 5. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author CT7567 rules on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.